For more than 2 decades, Hollywood fans have obsessed over one question: what really happened between Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie? Their marriage was one of the most intense, unpredictable, and talked about relationships in entertainment history. From their infamous vials of blood to their whirlwind romance, the couple lived in a world that blurred the lines between passion, chaos, and total emotional overload. But after their shocking divorce in 2003, both stars moved on, publicly, at least. Angelina became a global humanitarian and mother of 6. Billy Bob rebuilt his life and career with quiet determination. Fans assumed the truth behind their breakup would remain hidden forever, locked away in rumors, speculation, and whispered theories. Until now, because 20 years later, Billy Bob Thornton has finally broken his silence, and his explanation is nothing like the scandal-filled headlines that once dominated tabloids. His confession is raw, emotional, and painfully honest. Not a story of betrayal, not a story of explosive fights, not even a story of growing apart. Instead, Thornton reveals the one heartbreaking reason he walked away from the woman he once called his soulmate, a reason that exposes a side of their marriage the public never saw. A reason rooted not in drama, but in deep personal struggle, fear, and self-doubt. And when you hear what he admitted, you might never look at their relationship the same way again. Because behind the glamour, behind the rumors, behind the tabloid chaos, lies a truth that is far more human, far more tragic, and far more real than anyone expected. 2 decades have passed since Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie shocked Hollywood with one of the most intense and unpredictable romances the industry had ever seen. Even today, their relationship feels like something out of a movie, passionate, chaotic, and impossible to ignore. They were the couple everyone talked about, wearing vials of each other's blood, finishing each other's sentences, and living in a world where love seemed louder than everything else around them. But just as quickly as their romance ignited, it ended. Suddenly, confusingly, and without explanation. For years, fans were left with nothing but rumors. Some said Thornton was afraid of Angelina's fast-paced lifestyle. Others claimed the age gap, her rising fame, or the pressure of the spotlight pushed them apart. But neither of them ever gave a full, honest answer. They simply parted ways, leaving the world wondering, why? Now, 20 years later, Billy Bob Thornton has finally broken the silence, and what he revealed is more heartbreaking than anyone expected. Because it wasn't betrayal, it wasn't scandal, and it wasn't a dramatic Hollywood blowout. Instead, Thornton admits there was one deeply personal reason behind the divorce. A reason rooted in fear, insecurity, and emotional battles he kept hidden from the world. A reason that shows their breakup wasn't about a lack of love, but about a man who believed he wasn't enough. When you learn what Billy Bob confessed after all these years, it changes everything you thought you knew about their marriage, and makes their story far more tragic, far more human, and far more real. When Billy Bob Thornton first met Angelina Jolie on the set of Pushing Tin in 1999, neither knew their lives were about to change forever. Jolie was in her mid-20s, rebellious, unpredictable, and already turning heads as one of Hollywood's most magnetic young stars. Thornton, nearly 20 years her senior, was a seasoned actor, a writer, and a man with a complicated history: 6 marriages, emotional struggles, and a lifelong discomfort with fame. Yet, when they locked eyes, something clicked. Sparks flew in a way that both described as instant, electric, impossible to ignore. Within months, they were inseparable. Their romance was wild, unapologetic, and so intense that it made headlines almost daily. The media called them the most eccentric couple in Hollywood, but neither of them cared. They were lost in their own universe. They married in 2000, and for a moment, everything looked perfect. They traveled together, worked together, and spoke about each other with a honesty and passion rarely seen in celebrity relationships. Jolie said she had never felt so deeply understood. Thornton said she made him feel alive, but behind closed doors, cracks were already forming. As Jolie's career skyrocketed with films like Girl, Interrupted, and Tomb Raider. She embraced humanitarian work, world travel, and an expanding public presence. She was becoming global. Thornton, meanwhile, was quietly shrinking into himself. He often described himself as someone who doesn't feel comfortable outside the South, someone who struggles with anxiety, crowded places, and constant attention. Fame, which Angelina handled effortlessly, overwhelmed him. Their worlds were growing apart not because of conflict, but because their personalities moved in opposite directions. Jolie once said, "Billy is the most honest man I've ever known." And that was true. But his honesty also revealed the truth he tried hardest to hide. He felt he wasn't enough for her. He believed Angelina deserved a life bigger than anything he could give. While Angelina flew across continents working with the UN, adopting her first child and expanding her global reach, Thornton admitted he stayed home, afraid. Afraid of the spotlight. Afraid of judgment. Afraid of being seen as the older, less glamorous partner. Afraid he was holding her back. He later confessed he often isolated himself during their marriage, withdrawing into silence, anxiety, and the belief that she would eventually leave him anyway. He never told her that. He just felt it. Their breakup shocked the world, but inside the marriage, it was almost inevitable. There was no scandal, no affair, no explosive fight. Instead, it was a slow, emotional separation, a quiet sadness that neither knew how to fix. Years later, Angelina would describe their marriage with surprising gentleness. "He's a wonderful man. We just had different lifestyles." But Thornton has now given the fuller truth. He said, "I never felt good enough for her." That's the real reason. His voice cracked when he said it, because for him, the divorce wasn't about losing a wife, it was about losing someone he adored. Someone he thought the world wanted more than he could ever be. And when you understand that, the story of their breakup stops sounding like Hollywood drama and starts sounding like something painfully human. A man battling his own fears, watching someone he loved rise far beyond the life he felt capable of living. After their divorce in 2002, the world assumed it was just another Hollywood breakup, two stars moving on, no different from countless others. But Billy Bob Thornton carried a weight far heavier than anyone knew. For years, he avoided interviews about Angelina Jolie. Not out of bitterness, but because speaking about her stirred emotions he had never fully healed from. It wasn't until recently, 2 decades later, that he finally opened up about the quiet truth he had been hiding. Billy Bob admitted that he wasn't just overwhelmed by Angelina's fame, he was overwhelmed by her. He said he often felt like he was living beside a real-life superhero, someone who moved through the world with fearlessness, purpose, and a rare emotional intensity that dazzled everyone around her. "She was like sunlight," he said, "and I was more like a guy who lived in the shade." But it wasn't jealousy. It was insecurity, the kind that slowly eats away at a person, whispering that they're not enough. Thornton described how, even while loving her deeply, he kept waiting for the moment she would wake up and realize she deserved someone younger, stronger, more worldly. Someone who fit her lifestyle. This silent belief became the invisible wall between them. While Angelina embraced global causes, visiting refugee camps, adopting children, and using her platform to shine light on humanitarian crises, Billy Bob felt out of place. He preferred home, routine, privacy, and quiet. He didn't want red carpets or flashing cameras. He didn't want to be Mr. Jolie. And every time Angelina's world expanded, his anxiety tightened. He said he would often stay Behind when she traveled because he felt he would just be a burden. Not because she made him feel that way. She never did, but because his inner fears convinced him it was true. Angelina, on the other hand, desperately wanted him by her side. She believed they could blend their worlds. But Billy Bob couldn't bridge the gap. He kept withdrawing, thinking he was doing the right thing, protecting her growth by removing his own limitations from her path. That was the heartbreaking misunderstanding. She didn't want him to step away. He thought stepping away was the only way to love her. This emotional miscommunication, never spoken aloud between them, slowly dismantled their marriage. Thornton revealed that he struggled with depression and social anxiety during those years, but he hid it behind humor and sarcasm. He didn't want Angelina to worry, so he pushed down his feelings until they crushed him. He didn't seek help. He didn't express his fears. He simply drifted. By the time they separated, he believed the breakup was inevitable. But Angelina didn't feel the same way. She once said, "Our paths just separated." For her, it wasn't about blame. It was about life moving forward, about accepting change with grace. The two remained connected, even keeping matching tattoos longer than most celebrity exes would dare. Billy Bob has since remarried and found stability. Angelina built a family and became one of the most influential actresses and humanitarians in the world. Their lives diverged sharply, yet when he speaks about her today, there is no regret, only tenderness. He said, "She'll always be a dear friend. I'll always love her." It's a rare thing in Hollywood. A breakup without bitterness, a romance remembered with gratitude instead of scandal. And it makes their story even more powerful, because sometimes the greatest heartbreak isn't a dramatic betrayal. It's loving someone so much that you believe they'd be happier without you. And for Billy Bob Thornton, that belief, right or wrong, was the quiet force that ended one of Hollywood's most unforgettable marriages. It took years for the dust to settle after their divorce. But healing didn't come through distance, it came through honesty. Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie eventually reconnected, not as lovers, but as two people who had shared something intense, rare, and deeply human. Their conversations became calmer, wiser, stripped of the noise that had once surrounded them. Billy Bob said the turning point for him was realizing that the divorce hadn't destroyed them. Instead, it freed them to become better versions of themselves, versions that they could never have reached, while trying to mold their lives into one shape. Angelina moved into global activism and motherhood with unmatched fire. Thornton quietly rebuilt the stability he had long been missing, focusing on music, writing, and relationships grounded in peace rather than chaos. He revealed that when they finally talked about the past, he apologized not because he had done something wrong, but because he had never told her the truth earlier. He never said how deeply he struggled with anxiety. He never explained why he stayed behind while she traveled the world. He never admitted that he feared she'd eventually wake up and realize she deserved a life without the weight of his insecurities. Angelina's response surprised him. She told him she had always known he struggled. She could see the heaviness he tried to hide, even though he thought he was concealing it perfectly. But she also said she never wanted him to be anything but himself. She didn't want him to be more glamorous, more famous, or more confident. She just wanted him to feel safe with her. That conversation, years after the breakup, gave Billy Bob the closure he didn't even know he needed. He realized his marriage to Angelina wasn't a failure. It was a chapter, a profound one that shaped them both. He called it one of the most beautiful times of my life, and even now. His voice softens when her name comes up. 2 decades later, he finally admitted the truth many had suspected, but few ever heard from his own mouth. "We didn't break up because we didn't love each other. We broke up because I didn't love myself enough to believe I belonged in her world." It is a confession that hits harder than any Hollywood scandal. It speaks to something universal, how personal fears can quietly sabotage relationships. Even when love is strong, Angelina's life took a dramatically different path. But she never erased Billy Bob from her story. She once said, "I'll always care for him," and she meant it. They kept their connection alive, not publicly but privately, respectfully, quietly, something rare in Hollywood, where exes often become strangers or tabloids' favorite targets. Today, Billy Bob looks back without regret. He says their time together taught him humility, emotional growth, and the courage to confront his anxieties head-on. In fact, his later marriage succeeded partly because he finally understood what he was battling inside. And Angelina? She continues to evolve as an actress, as a mother of 6, and as a humanitarian whose impact reaches far beyond movie screens. Her relationship with Thornton remains a reminder of who she was before the world crowned her an icon, a passionate, complex young woman who loved deeply and without fear. In the end, their story isn't a tragedy. It's a lesson. A reminder that even the most intense romances don't always last forever, but they can still leave behind something meaningful: growth, understanding, and a bond that time can't fully erase. After 20 years, Billy Bob Thornton's confession doesn't reopen old wounds. It closes them. It reveals that their love was real, their breakup was human, and their lives, though separate, remain forever influenced by the chapter they shared.